The year 1914 pushed the United States population closer to 100 million people. More and more cars rolled off assembly lines in record numbers. Baseball was winning over fans from coast to coast, and new ideas were reshaping daily life. But far beyond America's shores, tensions in Europe were building toward a global conflict that would soon pull the world into war. This is a look back at the events of 1914. On January 5th, the Ford Motor Company stunned the business world when Henry Ford announced a groundbreaking change: an 8-hour workday and a minimum wage of $5 for a full day's labor. Ford's move was seen as both generous and radical, and the decision not only improved the lives of his employees, but also reduced turnover and boosted productivity. By the end of that year, Ford had sold an impressive 248,000 cars. On February 19th, the American postal system was at the center of one of its strangest tales when the child, May Pierdorf, was mailed by train from Grangeville, Idaho, to her grandparents' home in Lewiston, 73 miles away. At the time, parcel post rates were cheaper than train fares, and there was no explicit enforcement against children riding with the mail. So the child traveled safely under the watchful eye of a railway mail clerk, and the incident became the most famous case of a child in the post. On April 9th, tensions between the United States and Mexico flared during the Tampico Incident. A group of U.S. Navy sailors went ashore for supplies in the Mexican port of Tampico and were arrested by Mexican forces loyal to General Huerta. Although they were quickly released, the refusal of the Mexican government to offer the formal apology demanded by the U.S. Navy pushed the two nations closer to conflict. On April 20th, labor unrest turned deadly in Colorado during the Lello Massacre. Striking miners, many of them immigrants, had been living in tent colonies after being evicted from company-owned housing. That day, gunfire erupted between striking workers and a combination of Colorado National Guard soldiers and private guards from the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company. By the end of the violence, 21 people were dead, including women and children, and the nation was horrified by the brutality. Also on April 20th, President Woodrow Wilson, already dealing with growing tensions in Mexico, addressed a joint session of Congress, asking for approval to use armed force if necessary. Congress granted the request, setting the stage for direct U.S. involvement with Mexico. On April 21st, American forces landed in Veracruz, Mexico, marking the beginning of the U.S. occupation of the city. Around 2,300 sailors and Marines stormed ashore to enforce an arms embargo against General Huerta's government. The next day, U.S. forces tried to stop a German ship from unloading weapons for Mexican troops. Mexico's president reacted angrily, and by April 22nd, diplomatic relations with the United States were severed. On April 23rd, baseball fans in Chicago got a brand new ballpark when Weekman Park opened. The stadium, home to the Chicago Whales of the short-lived Federal League, would later become the legendary Wrigley Field, one of the oldest and most iconic venues in all of sports. On May 7th, Congress officially designated Mother's Day as a national holiday, and just 2 days later, on May 9th, President Woodrow Wilson issued a proclamation urging Americans to honor mothers with public and private expressions of love and reverence. On May 21st, in Hibbing, Minnesota, a young entrepreneur named Carl Wickman started what would eventually become the Greyhound Bus Company. His first passengers were iron miners who needed a ride to work, and he charged just 15 cents for the trip. From those humble beginnings, Greyhound would grow into one of the most recognized bus lines in America. On June 28th, history took a sharp turn toward war. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo by a 19-year-old Bosnian Serb nationalist. The killing set off a chain reaction of alliances and ultimatums that would, within weeks, ignite the First World War. On July 11th, a young left-handed pitcher named George Herman Ruth made his Major League Baseball debut for the Boston Red Sox. Pitching against the Cleveland Naps at Fenway Park, Babe Ruth led his team to a 4-3 victory. Few could have predicted that this rookie pitcher would go on to become baseball's most famous slugger. On July 28th, exactly 1 month after the assassination, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. The declaration pulled in allied nations, one after another, turning a regional dispute into a full-scale global conflict. World War I had begun. On August 1st, Germany declared war on Russia, further escalating the rapidly spreading conflict in Europe. 3 days later, on August 4th, the United States, under President Wilson, declared its neutrality, though the nation would watch the growing war with increasing unease. On August 6th, tragedy struck the White House when First Lady Ellen Wilson died of Bright's disease at the age of 54. She was known for her quiet dignity and her work to improve housing conditions for Washington, D.C.'s poor. On August 15th, the Talesin Massacre shocked Wisconsin and the architectural world. Julian Carlton, a disgruntled servant, set fire to the home of famed architect Frank Lloyd Wright while he was away and murdered 7 people inside, including Wright's mistress, Martha Borthwick, and her 2 children. The attack remains one of the darkest episodes in Wright's life. On September 3rd, a new pope was elected. Pope Benedict XV would spend much of his papacy trying unsuccessfully to broker peace during World War I. On November 23rd, after months of occupation, U.S. troops withdrew from Veracruz. Opposing Mexican government forces quickly took control, making the city the base of operations during Mexico's ongoing revolution. On November 28th, the New York Stock Exchange reopened for bond trading after being closed for nearly 4 months, the longest shutdown in history. The closure had been prompted by fears that World War I would destabilize the global economy. On December 12th, the Dow Jones Industrial Average suffered its largest one-day percentage drop in history, plunging nearly 25%. This record would stand for more than a century. On December 25th, a rare and remarkable event unfolded along the Western Front in Europe. Known as the Christmas Truce, British and German soldiers set aside their weapons, climbed out of their trenches, and met in no man's land to exchange gifts, share food, and even play a friendly game of football. The moment was brief, but it remains one of the most poignant symbols of humanity in the midst of war. Recollection Road loves to recommend LEGACYBOX because we both believe in preserving the past. If you have a cluttered closet with cherished home videos and photos that rarely see the light of day, then you need to visit LEGACYBOX.com/recollection. These irreplaceable heirlooms are rapidly fading away, and they deserve to be digitized and shared with family and friends. And right now, LEGACYBOX is offering you $9 tape transfers. The process is simple. Send in your LEGACYBOX filled with old VHS tapes, camcorder tapes, and pictures. Their team will professionally digitize everything by hand, right here in the USA. You'll get the originals returned to you, along with organized digital copies. I love LEGACYBOX because it makes all my favorite memories available anytime. I can post them on social media or pull up a slideshow on my TV, which keeps special family moments alive. Visit LEGACYBOX.com/recollection to shop their $9 tape sale. That's LEGACYBOX.com/recollection to unlock this incredible offer. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, and make sure to check the description of this video for links to pick up a t-shirt and sign up for the newsletter. Also, don't forget to visit our friends at Horn and Hard Art to save 10% on your next order. Visit hornandhardart.com/recollection. Thank you to our loyal Patreon supporters listed here. Visit patreon.com/recollectionroad to join the club.